Welcome to another episode of Truth. Thanks for stopping by. As always, I appreciate your checking out my material. If you would go to the website here, in the upper right hand corner, you will see the icons for my social media platforms that I post on. If you would go to those social media platforms, even if you watch it mainly on one of them, go to the rest of them if you have accounts there, like and subscribe so that my numbers get built up a little bit and we get more coverage that way. So thank you for that. Last episode we talked about some of the bills that were wandering through the halls of the General Assembly here in Virginia, and we're going to continue to kind of follow some of them and talk about some in particular and some other interesting events coming out of Richmond. So the first thing that I wanted to do was just some of the bills. There has been a lot said about Governor Spanberger and her campaign where she talked about affordability, but yet it seems like there were a lot of bills that were introduced in the Assembly and the Senate that had to do with a lot of different kinds of taxes. Now, just because a bill is introduced doesn't mean it gets passed, although the one party, the Democrats, have pretty much control over the Senate and the House of Delegates. So they can kind of do what they want without a lot of interference, and it's up to the governor then to veto them or sign them, whatever is her fancy. So we're going to talk about a couple of them here. We have the HB 161, which was the Virginia lottery, would control internet gaming, internet gambling, and that one, you can see it on the right-hand side there. It passed the House, which means it goes on to the Senate. In fact, on Thursday was crossover day, where the bills that had been passed in the House go to the Senate, and those that had been passed in the Senate go over to the House for consideration. And so it was passed in the House. We'll see what the Senate does with it. I'm not a big fan of gambling in the first place, and the internet just makes things easier to hide it from people, easier to get addicted because it's on your phone, it's in front of you all the time. Like I say, I'm just not a big fan of that. We also have HB 188, which introduced a 10% income bracket at the top. This bill was actually incorporated into HB 979, so there really wasn't much to be done there. HB 378 failed, which is a good thing if you have much for investments, if you rely on investments for retirement. This was going to put a tax on your investments, and so I'm kind of glad that failed. And some other taxes, sales and use tax on various services and digital stuff. So again, there was a whole list of things that under this bill could be taxed, and there were taxes levied in certain districts. So certain districts, communities, whatever. Cities, counties, they could levy their own taxes as well. And this is continued, and kind of interesting because I didn't know a whole lot about how bills worked in Virginia when I started the podcasting about this stuff a couple weeks ago. And so continued means that they're no longer considered this year, but they have slid over to next year. So in even numbered years, to 2026, you can continue a bill and it goes over to next year. So 2027, we will see the same bill again to either be voted down or to be passed. So interesting that it's how it works. HB 919, it was also continued for next year. Retail sales and use tax, including an 11% tax on firearms and ammunition. And just an increase of sales tax and some other use taxes, things that we use. There was a whole list of things that are not currently taxed. Gym memberships, and they're evading me right now. I apologize for that, but so that one is continued. We won't see any increases in those taxes this year. Maybe next year. Again, HB 978, some more retail taxes, taxes on various services, including digital personal property. What else we got here? HB 979. This was the one that HB 188 was included in. This. They were so close to what they were trying to do. They combined them. This was some more taxation provisions. Again, added 2 new tax brackets. Kind of interesting there. HB 1179 failed. This was some taxes that would be placed on transportation services, including things like Lyft and taxis and that sort of thing. So this one failed. Assault weapons, carrying them in public areas, certain public areas. It's in committee. It went over to the Senate, and it's in committee in the Senate right now. So we'll see what happens with that. Concealed carry weapon reciprocity, that is continuing to be discussed, and we will see how that comes out. The issue there I talked about in the last episode was right now we have about, I think it's 30 other states that we have reciprocity with, and if this goes through, and by the time all gets said and done, Virginia would have reciprocity probably with about 6 other states. SB, the Senate bill 378, public employees, it repeals their prohibition against being unionized, and there's some pros and cons here. Some of the pros are that it allows the public employees a better mechanism to get pay raises, to improve working conditions. The downside is that costs money. Obviously, if we give city, county, state employees a raise, then there is a cost that has to be taken care of, which means taxes coming back on us. We'll see how this one. It did pass in the Senate. Hasn't done anything in the House yet, but we'll see. So, so we see some of those taxes. The bills got continued into next year. Some of that stuff failed. So there was a lot of the concern about taxes that we were going to see going up, and we won't see some of those because they either failed or they're continued to next year. So that's a good thing. We don't like to see a lot of taxes. I think my personal opinion is that some of those that got continued to next year maybe will be a year removed then from Governor Spanberger being elected under the affordability claim, and so maybe just they're trying to remove over time, get that further away so that it's not remembered that that's how it went. But we'll see how it goes next year. We also have the budget, and interesting because I didn't know again about the budget in Virginia, and so what it is you have committees, one in the Senate, and if I understand right, one in the House of Delegates, and they basically separate themselves out. The committees, they develop a budget, and then they bring it to the respective chambers within the General Assembly, and you get to vote up or down. We approve this or we don't approve this, and it's not a place of discussion or wheeling and dealing. It's a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and so things that come out of the committee, you either say yes or no, and kind of an interesting approach. So the majority of the people in the General Assembly don't have much to say. I mean, I'm sure they have say, and they can pass it on to those people on the committee and that stuff. But very kind of interesting way to do that. So, but one thing that was kind of buried in the midst of the budget was this that you see here. At the bottom there, number 8, a map of districts shall not, when considered on a statewide basis, unduly favor or disfavor any political party. That's the law, the current law, the way it was created in 2020 by the Democrats who are still in power. But they inserted a piece of language. You see this on the left, the 2026 budget language, that the provisions of the number, which is the thing on the left, the Code of Virginia will not be applicable to any congressional district established by the General Assembly between January 1st, 2025 and October 31st, 2030, pursuant to Article 2, Section 6 of the Constitution of Virginia. So they put something into the budget that has nothing to do with the budget, and basically it says, as we can see here, that that the code that is written now doesn't apply. So basically what they're saying is that number 8 at the bottom will not apply to any congressional district established by the General Assembly between January 1st, 2025, which is a year ago, and October 31st, 2030. So they're basically saying, you don't have to worry. If we create a district and it favors one political party or the other, it's no big deal, because now it's legal to do that, and it just kind of bugs me. And we'll talk here. We'll kind of transition into talking about the redistricting amendment here, but just crazy. It has no business being in the budget. This is not a budget issue, but sneaking it in there where they can, it not necessarily belongs there. So we're going to talk about the redistricting amendment, and some of you may be paying attention to that, some of you not. It is in the courts right now based on some things that are going on. Originally, a judge in Tazewell said that it did not actually meet the requirements, follow the rules that were in place when it was passed in a special legislative session back in October. And so some of the other, that meant some rules that regarding amendments was not followed, and so therefore it couldn't go forward. And so then it was appealed. The Court of Appeals said, hey, this is a big thing. We don't want to be the ones that make such a big decision. So they passed it up to the state Supreme Court. And the state Supreme Court said, we'll rule on it, but after the referendum, which is April 21st. So at this point, another suit has been brought by the Republican National Committee, and they're saying that it's not right the way it was done, the way it's worded, the question, and we'll talk about that in a minute, the question that you will see on the ballot if it goes to the vote. We'll talk about that. So it's gotten to be kind of a major issue, and if we look at it, so we have two maps here. The map on the top is the congressional districts. These are the districts that elect the 11 congressmen that go to Washington, D.C. From Virginia. There's 11 districts there. And the bottom map is the map that the Democrats have drawn and say, this is the one that we want to implement if the amendment for allowing us to redistrict is approved on April 21st. And again, whether we're still kind of in limbo as to whether that election or that vote will take place, but we'll see as we go forward. So the way it works is if you take a look, we have this purple district over here. We have the red, the brown, the pink, and this kind of turquoise. Those are areas that are basically considered Republican. They're I mean, the Democrats do get elected in those areas, but for right now, so the Republicans have 5 of the 11 districts, and the Democrats, there's a small district in here, kind of this blue color, this gray district, blue, the green, the orange, and then there's a little yellow one right here. So the Republicans have 5, the Democrats have 6. And that was created in 2020, and it's pretty fair, really. So out of the 11 districts, Republicans have 5, Democrats have 6. In the last election, President Trump received, I think it was about 47% of the vote in Virginia. So, we're pretty close there. I mean, it's slightly more than 50% that the Democrats have, and so that's pretty fair. 6 and 5, the way it's represented. But what they want to do is this lower one here, this purple area would be the only one that Republicans would probably be able to hold on to. All the rest of them, the other 10, would go to the Republicans. And if you look at the way these got skewed, so the green up here, because these areas up here are the population centers near Washington, D.C. The gray area here that is currently Democratic, partly because Richmond's in that area and a couple other bigger cities. But notice the green. They've changed the boundaries of this district to basically encompass some of what used to be, I guess, if you will, territory for the Republicans. And so the population in the current green area would keep this to be Democratic because their numbers would be greater than the number of Republicans in the area they took over. And look at this. District, I believe that's 11, the orange. It was this little district up in here, and they kind of snaked it down here and then gobbled up this whole big chunk of area over here. And the same with the blue. They kind of changed it around and came over here and snuck out on this end. The purple, which was Republican, got greatly reduced. In this little tiny yellow area, again, they snake it down along the coast and then gobble up a whole bunch of this space. And so it's just very interesting, and it's not very fair. So if we look at the question that you will find on the ballot, if and when we have the referendum on it, it says that should the Constitution of Virginia be amended? Now, that's how the question starts. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended? And if you remember, the Constitution was already amended in 2020 to set up the nonpartisan board that currently created the current set of districts the way we have it. So should the Constitution be amended? Well, we already amended the Constitution not that long ago to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts. To allow the General Assembly. It's not the job of the General Assembly to design congressional districts. That's why in 2020 we, the people, had voted like 67% of the state said this is how we want our districts to be determined was by this nonpartisan district. So they're asking us to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts. Temporarily, you don't put temporary things in the in the Constitution. That seems kind of silly to me, but just frustrating. So. And they say that they want to do this to restore the fairness of upcoming elections. Kind of interesting to me that they're talking about fairness, and what they propose is anything but fair. If you look at the way they did this, and they just completely discombobulated the way the districts are put together. So fairness, who's fairness? That's a crazy concept. It's not fair what they're claiming to do. While ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census. So they're admitting that Virginia's standard, meaning the normal, the way it should be redistrict, is the process that is currently going on, and they just want to hijack it for the next 4 years so that they can make changes and not have to deal with it. So anyway, it's kind of wild, kind of crazy. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. It's just really kind of sad, though, politics, and I get it. Politics is part of our life here in the United States, and we have that freedom to go whichever way. But at the same time, I think that we do have to keep the politicians. They work for us, but they're up there doing all this smoke and mirror stuff, trying to convince us that they're only wanting to be fair. Go back and look at that, how they had to finagle all these districts and get everything all chopped up, and that's not fair. That's not fair. Some of the bills that we were talking about a while ago that got continued. There was one bill this last week, in fact, that some of the Democrats voted against it. And so it failed by a pretty narrow margin, I think 3 or 4 votes, because some of the Democrats switched to the other side and said no. Well, then they took a break, and they're part of the regulations or the way it works in Richmond is if a bill fails, it can be resurrected as long as the sponsor, the person that submitted it to begin with, if it fails, he has to vote no, which he did. the Democrat ended up voting no, because that means that they can resurrect that bill again and reconsider it. So after a break, they voted to resurrect it, had a little bit more discussion, another vote, and it passed. Because somebody in power came and talked to those people, those Democrats that voted against that bill. Now they switched, an hour later they switched their mind and voted for it, because somebody came and talked to them. And that's the way politics works. That's the craziness, the power that some people have, which, should they have it or not? I don't know. That's for somebody else to decide, not me. So anyway, that's the status of some of the tax bills. There was a lot of fear of a whole bunch of new taxes, and so there'll be some new taxes, yeah, for sure. But some of those got shot down, or we'll see them rise up again next year. This whole thing with the redistricting amendment, keep your ear to the ground. It's still in the courts. There's not a decision made at this point, and we'll see how that goes. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.